Now I'd like to introduce City Manager Frank Babinec to give us an update on the City of Coral Springs. Frank was hired as City Manager for the City of Coral Springs in December of 2019. Prior to that, he served as the Chief of the Coral Springs Parkland Fire Department from February 2014 to December 2019. A native Floridian and a resident of Coral Springs since 1991, Chief Babinec joined the fire department in 1993 as a volunteer firefighter and was hired full-time in 2000 as the training officer. He spent 7 years as an assistant chief and an additional 7 years as the deputy chief of operations, dedicating more than 26 years of service to the communities of Coral Springs and Parkland. Babinec also served 12 years as a lead instructor at the Coral Springs Regional Institute of Public Safety. Babinec possesses a Chief Fire Officer designation from the Center of Public Safety Excellence, Fire Officer 4 from the state of Florida, and an Executive Fire Officer designation from the National Fire Academy. As City Manager, Babinec plans to develop and deploy comprehensive strategies that ensure Coral Springs stays on a path towards innovation, business expansion, and enhanced public safety while improving city parks, events, and festivals, ensuring that Coral Springs remains attractive to both businesses and families.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that introduction. One thing that I get asked on a regular basis is how was being the fire chief, how did it prepare you to be city manager? And I think this year has answered that question. Unfortunately, the year spent in emergency services has really prepared a lot of our staff, including myself, for what we've dealt with this year. So I appreciate that introduction, and just finished up my first year as the city manager, and just it was a challenging year, but something I will cherish as the experiences that we went through as a community. I want to extend my appreciation to Cindy and Andrea. Thank you for having me. Also want to extend my appreciation to all of the Coral Springs Coconut Creek Chamber and Board of Directors. We appreciate you inviting us this morning to come out and talk to you and give you a little insight as to what last year kind of gave us and what we have on the horizon for 21. Thank you for recognizing all the dignitaries. I appreciate that. I know our mayor and vice mayor and commissioner are on, and I want to say hi to our sister city and partners over in Coconut Creek, Commissioner Welsh, City Manager Brooks, and Assistant City Manager Rose. Pleasure to be here with you guys. Also want to just recognize some members of our senior staff that are joining us today. You know, this job is something that you can't do alone, and you have to have a very talented, dedicated staff to carry out everything that needs to be done. And we certainly have that here in the city of Coral Springs. First off, our city attorney, John Hearn, who has, interestingly enough, John and I are separated only by a couple months with our tenure with the city. So John's extremely invested and great to work with. His assistant city attorney, Sherry Whitaker, the deputy city manager, Bob Kernell, and Melissa Heller. We have our economic development director, Christy Bartlett, our police chief, Clyde Perry. We have our emergency manager, who we'll be talking about here in a little bit, Alex Falcone, our building official, Alex Hernandez, our finance director, Kim Moskowitz, our HR director, Dale Pastra, our budget and strategy director, Catherine Givens, and our communication and marketing director, Lynn Marshall, as well as our fire chief, Mike McNally, are all on the call. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, it heavily involves all of our staff and all of our directors. So I want to just thank them for their service. I want to thank them for their hard work and everything that they've done and will continue to do for the community. So saying that these have been unprecedented times would be probably an understatement. A lot are happy that 2020 is behind us, but we still do have some challenges to face in 21. Currently, we have 2 approved vaccines in the US. Our third should be approved here shortly, and the fourth will not be far behind that. I would say by the end of January, beginning of February, we should have all 4 vaccines approved. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our partnership here in a second, giving those vaccines. I know that these vaccines are something everybody's looking forward to. Cindy, you kind of talked about it before, getting back together and being able to have in-person things. The vaccines are a path to that, along with herd immunity and some of the other things you kind of learned about in the news. I'm incredibly proud and honored to announce that our Department of Emergency Management, Director Alex Falcone and his staff and a bunch of others from the city went out and found partnerships with the Florida Department of Health, the Florida Department of Emergency Management, the Coral Square Mall. And yesterday, we started our pilot, our initial days of our vaccine site here in Coral Springs. This is something that is instrumental in getting our community, or keeping our community safe and getting our community back to some sort of normalcy. The site will open tomorrow for the public. Now I want to talk a little bit about what the requirements for this site are. Because it is a partnership with the state, we're following the governor's orders, which are healthcare workers, frontline facing EMS, and anybody 65 or older. And that's going to be during this phase. I can't project out how long this phase is going to last. I've had a couple conversations with, well, when do you think the next phase of vaccines is going to open up? I think once the additional vaccines are approved and we get all the sites open by the end of the month, I think Florida will have most of its sites up and running. I think in February, March timeframe, you'll start to see those vaccines go into the next phase, which obviously will be a good thing. So I would encourage you to go to our website where the information on this vaccine distribution is. The site is supported by us. However, it is a Florida Department of Health site. What I mean by that is the appointments for that site go through the Florida Department of Health. We're looking to initially start off vaccinating approximately 500 folks a day, and we'll ramp up to about 1,000. The one thing I will tell you is this isn't the end of our vaccine sites here in Coral Springs. Myself, Alex, and the rest of the staff continue to look for opportunities to open other vaccine locations and vaccine programs. And I'm hoping that we will have more sites within the city here very shortly. And one of the bigger hurdles to that is getting our hands on the actual vaccines, which, as you can imagine, are a very, very tight commodity right now.